Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I don't know what time it is, 5:01. And the first thing is to welcome all the visitors, always on our agenda. So I don't know if I'm going to call staff really visitors, but welcome to the meeting. Is there anybody here who's not staff that has anything to say and wants to introduce themselves? So then if I could have a motion to approve the minutes, the agenda, and the warrants, and then we'll go straight into
Seconded.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now we'll hand it over to Jerry.
Wonderful. So let's just, you can talk amongst yourself if you want to get set up. While I'm waiting for that to come up, I was negligent on getting my board report, so there you go, that's from last time. You can pass those along. Thank you. So, welcome to our presentation from Oak Grove. Everybody has a theme. It's the beauty of going last. It's good to go last. You see what everybody else is doing, but then it's also a little nerve-wracking when you go last because then it's like, oh, you know, you got a lot to, you know, the bar is pretty high from Academy and Green Street. So our theme is a gift of a small school. As you know, that we're the smallest school in Brattleboro town. We are a single strand school. We currently have 143 students. That's pre-K to 6. But there are a lot of things that we're still able to do within a very small school setting. So we're hoping to share some of that with you tonight. Again, two big things are our theme of being a small school that we're going to focus on, and that is a sense of belonging for all students, staff, as well as our families, and how we're maximizing our learning. So those are the two big, broad categories we're going to focus on. Here at Oak Grove, we are a PBIS school, and I know that PBIS has been mentioned at board meetings before. What is PBIS? Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. There are different tiers. You've seen, because of the wonderful job at Academy and Green Street, you've seen the triangles. I don't have any triangles to show, okay? So you just have to remember the triangle, right? I'm not going to show you any triangles. But our PBIS guiding principles that we teach constantly every day about being safe, being kind, being responsible and respectful. They're like our school-wide expectations, or really we refer to them as our guiding principles. We're going to talk about Grovies a little bit later. And a Grovie is a certain chip that helps us to give acknowledgement to students that we see following one of these different guiding principles at any place. Yeah, I know. We're going to get to them later.
Oh.
Was I supposed to talk about them now? Interspersed with my presentation, I'll pull up a few of our continuous improvement action goals. And the ones that I pulled up tie into belonging in order to help us have that sense of belonging, have to do with school climate. So I have a couple statistics here. So one of our goals is to increase our implementation of school-wide PBIS programming. Again, that's like your bottom, your tier 1, to 80%. That is Vermont PBIS, TIFIA's, which again, we love these acronyms, our tiered fidelity implementation. So a tiered fidelity implementation is an assessment through PBIS that they ask a series of questions. They ask all kinds of questions to find out like how well we're doing with our basic tier 1. And again, it's a self-assessment. So we're pretty hard on ourselves. Some people might, think that, we're easier, but so that's why we score a 60 for our tier 1. The goal is to move us up to an 80. So that's in our school improvement, and what do we need to do about that? Tier 2, that's that yellow, remember the triangle, that's your yellow. Support for students who are not responding to universal efforts. Our TIFI score is 25%. We know as a PBIS team that this is a real concern, and it remains to be a concern that, we kind of have the universal, we have the really great, like, what are we doing with all kids? And then Steph will talk a little bit later on, so this is the tier 3 in terms of our score of being 76, that we have the 5 to 10% of the student population that needs the extra behavioral supports, but it's kind of like the, that middle that we're struggling with. And so it's definitely a goal of ours. Passports. Catherine Mason, school counselor.
Hi. Here, you can pass these out. So I'm giving you some samples, I do need these back, of our passports. And at the beginning of the year, it's really vital that we start out right away with our students getting a sense of belonging and a sense of community that we aspire and we work to cultivate day in and day out. And so the first thing they do is go on a passport tour. And the passport activity is where they get to really begin to learn about putting the guiding principles, be kind, be safe, be respectful, and be responsible, into action. So at a certain point, Jerry makes an announcement. All the classroom doors open up. All the classrooms leave at the same time. And each classroom is assigned to start off in a particular location in the school building. So if you look at the passport, you may see one that says, a page that says hallway, or bathroom, or cafeteria. So each classroom goes to one of these locations, and they get a lesson right there on site. What are the expected behaviors here if you're hanging out in the cafeteria or in the playground? They're going to be different. So the children learn right away, what we expect from them, what the guiding principles look like, sound like, feel like in those locations. This year, we had our 6th graders do the teaching. And it was so awesome to see our 6th graders just rise to the occasion right away, step into being active role models, being teachers to the students about the guiding principles, and really what it means to be a kid here at Oak Grove School. That's the passport.
This is Galen Kemp, grade 2.
Good evening. So in addition to explicitly teaching our expectations within the whole school, during the first week of school, many of the teachers will also teach and bring those guiding principles into the classroom and work with their class to create a constitution or expectations or a matrix or a rubric of some sort where these guiding principles are also used and taught and referred to in the classroom. So this is an example of a classroom constitution that one teacher has created this year, where their class got together. They had a discussion to think about when their needs for kindness, safety, respect, and responsibility are met. And what's really nice about this that I really like is that each student in the classroom is represented up here with part of their voice for what matters to them. This Constitution is on a huge poster in this teacher's classroom, and everybody signed it and they refer to it. It's a great teaching tool during the day. Students refer to it, adults, teachers. It's a great reference point for reinforcing the guiding principles in the classroom to match that what we do in the school as a whole.
So this is Tracy Bartlett, our HCRS, school-based clinician.
So we bring many activities here at Oak Grove. We bring together all ages. And by doing that, we create the sense of community. You can see there's different activities listed up there. For example, the Grovey Walk, where we bring all the kids together. The whole school walks down to the ball field, and we all play games together, and everybody gets popsicles. But allowing the older kids to mix in with the younger kids creates a sense of community, and it strengthens the community. The older kids are always watching, looking out for the younger kids, making sure they stay together, and just encouraging and creating that sense of responsibility, empathy, and kindness. So all of these activities, which you're going to hear more about as the evening goes on, but each of them is helping to lay the foundation to create these neural pathways for the kids for an empathetic environment. They're learning it, they're practicing it, and they're modeling it. So it's going to carry on with them throughout their life. So it's really important for everything in the school.
And to just add to that, the student leaders are a place, sort of a pinnacle place for students, 5th and 6th grade students, where they really get to step up again and be full-time committed to the role of being role models and mentors to younger kids. And they dedicate time and energy to really looking at what our school needs and what our greater community needs, and ways in which they can support that. So it's just a experience here at Oak Grove that we create so that our students from pre-K right through 6th really get to build on the guiding principles, build on creating a sense of community, and taking responsibility for cultivating a community that's inclusive and empathic.
Being a Big Kid Buddy helps her learn to read. I also get to know her better, and she gets to know me, and we have fun! I like working with the big kids because they are funny, helpful, and kind. They're smart, they're kind, they're reasonable, and they're just nice. What I like about Big Kid Buddies is that they get to read to me. What I like about Little Kid Buddies is that they get to listen and they get to meet new people. Being a student leader because you're respectful to others and you show kids what's right and what's wrong, and you're just respectful to other people and you're kind. I like leadership because, well, you gotta make a difference, you help people when they need help, and basically a role model for the other kids and show them what's right and how to be kind. I think what I like about being a Big Kid Buddy is that you get to make younger kids happy. Whenever you go down to their classroom, or if they come up to you, they're always like, "Yay, my Big Kid Buddy is here!" And it's so nice to hear them say that. I think also, you get a lot of hugs, and everybody likes hugs.
Let's see where we are.
So is this me now?
Yeah.
I think so. So far you've been outstanding listeners. And so I wanted to make sure that you have a chance to earn a Grovey. So you're very welcome.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're very welcome.
What am I
So
supposed to do with my
respectful, please don't put it in your mouth. Anybody like one in the back? Are you all set? Oh, excuse me. So for being respectful listeners, so far we can come back and have a lot more. But our students, again, this is our tier. we consider our tier 1. All students have opportunity to earn Grovies in their classrooms. And and we have like 3 levels of earning Grovies. So there are the individual Grovies, which I just gave to you, and older kids, like 1st through 6th grade, I think. Oh, sorry, you want me to try to hold that up? Just this way? Yeah. I all set there? Okay. So 1st grade to 6th grade, they all have a little vial that, I don't even know if that's the right word, a little cup that we purchased that fit the Grovie perfectly. And it holds 20 Grovies. And so students are earning individual, and they put them in their little cup throughout the day. When they get to 20, then they have an opportunity to cash those in. And teachers have different ways in which they can cash them in. It might be take a message to office. It might be call the buses at the end of the day. It might be
sit in the teacher's chair.
sit in the teacher's chair. The older kids love that one because, Eric's got a great chair. So, so there's different things, but that's how they cash them in. And then they once they get their 20, then they have a classroom bucket, and they dump their Grovies in the classroom. And when the classroom bucket gets up to, I think it's about 400, we guesstimate, then they have a classroom celebration. And those classroom celebrations could be PJ Day, that could be an ice cream special, it could be movie and popcorn. It's all kinds of things. You never really know. And then we have our school-wide, which is where we put all the classroom buckets when they get to be about 10,000 Grovies, and we have our school-wide celebrations. So you can see we have part of our walking trip in the fall is a celebration, our PJ Day, and then our winter carnival. A lot of these are multi-age grouping type of events where we will group kids together. So one adult has 5 to 6 members of the community, ages pre-K, sometimes pre-K, sometimes, well, the little ones are a little harder because sometimes they kind of, they do their own things. It's a little overwhelming to have a 4-year-old with like a 12-year-old. So definitely a kindergartner up to grade 6. Every adult in the building has a group of 5 to 6, and those are our multi-age groups. And so we have done mix-it-up lunches. We've done some winter carnival kind of events. And again, when we do our walk, we do walk, and we participate in games with our multi-age groups. Our winter carnival, am I going still? I think the person who was supposed to do all this isn't here. But winter carnival is the event that we have in December, just before the holiday vacation, and it's a tradition. It was here way before I got here, and PTO helps us out. The staff help. The kids create a lot of the games and activities. So what happens is that for about 2 hours, really the whole school kind of shuts down. And is that door locked? Do you need to? No, okay. The whole school kind of like shuts down. We go into winter carnival mode. And so upstairs you could have students that are doing cookie decorating and doing crafts. And then downstairs they're participating in all kinds of games. And the 5th and 6th graders are actually running the games and the activities. So it's a bunch of fun. And there's just a few extra pictures that we've had. I mean, the games are kind of silly. We usually have a theme. We've had trolls. This year was just Winter Wonderland. We've had Candyland. We've had Wizard of Oz. I don't know. That's okay. And then we always have a door decorating as well. And so going along with our theme, so the Winter Wonderland, those are all the pictures of the doors. Which yesterday when the staff, at our staff meeting, we took time to kind of run through this and take a look. I'm sure Mark and Green Street probably spent at least 2 weeks prepping, and we did it we're not that good. So that's why we're kind of still shooting from the hip this morning, but we're good this afternoon. Anyway, the staff were really impressed because they're busy and they know that they've decorated their door but didn't have a chance. I'm like, oh my gosh, look how cute they are. So not everybody saw all the doors, but So they enjoyed that. And then, of course, to remind us, sometimes we have some visitors that come from Captain Kindness and the Kindness Fairy, and then Professor Grovey oftentimes will show up at All Schools Sing and present and announce that we have earned our 10,000 points, and we'll be doing a school-wide celebration. So, Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Stockton. I am the STEP behavior interventionist. And Jerry was talking about the triangle and STEP, as you know from the other elementary schools. We kind of do work with the top of the triangle. And so STEP actually stands for Supportive Teams for Educational Progress. It's not a program, it's a service. We're available to everybody in the school, but we work with the top of the triangle. And basically one of our focuses is changing the school's culture for acceptance and inclusion. And the STEP program, or I even call it a program, but the STEP program, we have several of us. We have BCBA, intensive case manager, 2 RBTs, which means that's a new term. It's registered behavior techs. And then a STEP para. Speaking of which, Jane just walked in as a STEP para. And we work with, like I said, kiddos at the top of the triangle. It's a range of 5 to 11% of the student population. It's fluid. It's not always, once you're getting STEP services doesn't mean you're always going to get STEP services. So we have kids coming in and out at different levels. And some of the things that we provide are one-on-one support in the class. We meet with teachers on a weekly basis to review the students that are getting the services. And the big picture is we do our best to make it possible for students with big behaviors to stay at Oak Grove and continue to be members of their classroom.
So we've talked a little bit about students and what we're doing with students. The next few slides have to do with how we're trying to create a sense of belonging for our families and to bring families together. So some of our goals tie into Jessica Bashford, who's our parent liaison. You'll hear from her in a minute. That Oak Grove will support the active engagement for families in order to improve student learning and attachment to school, ensure that our events are adequately promoted, welcoming, educationally enriching, and accessible to all parents, and also to provide educational opportunities for families to learn strategies for supporting the academic, social, and emotional development of their child. So the next few slides, we'll talk about this, but the next few slides we'll be talking about some of the programming that we do throughout the year. So we just got our parent climate results back for this year, 2018, and I thought this is a great opportunity for me to throw something in from our parent climate survey. And this is over the last 6 years, and I just pulled up these 3 areas and I combined them. And the reason I did that is because it has to do with the sense of community, and that since that's our focus, there are other questions on the parent climate survey, of course, that you'll see the results of probably at another time. But this is, I feel welcome when I come into the school. There are a variety of ways to be involved, and school personnel are responsive. So the school personnel, it's actually on the survey is broken up into the principal, the nurse, the main office, and then individual teachers, school counselor. But this is just kind of grouping it. So you can see we've been kind of up and down. The last 2 years we've kind of leveled off, but I do want to say that this year our results, we had over 40%. So this number here of the 378 from last year, even though we're leveled off, this is a much better, more accurate what am I trying to say? Picture, I think, because our percent has gone way up. We only received like 12% return rate last year, and we were certainly not proud of that. So it's like, what do we need to do? So with we're closer, I think, to 45, 46% return rate. That is certainly, that makes that number much more valuable to us, and for us to look at the entire parent survey as far as what are the things that families are saying that we need to work on, and so that's much better. You know,
What did you do differently this year, but to get so many more of the surveys returned?
well, we always have parent surveys around. They're distributed around conference time. Thank you all. And you know, I think we have just kind of had them. We've tried the electronic way where we send them home. We've sent them home with kids before. Last year we just kind of had them at the front hallway. This year we set up 3 different tables, one up in our 4-6 area, one in our at the main door, and one right outside our primary classrooms. We also had teachers passing them out at conferences. So, you know, I think it was just like, here it is, take a few minutes, drop it off as you go. So, I mean, we talked about, you know, do we have more? Should we send them home again? And so there's still more that can be done in terms of getting, you know, closer to the, you know, hitting that 50% or even higher. But we were really, I was, and you know, want to share with the staff, I was less like, oh yay, you know, it was really good to see that. You know, the 389 for the level of climate, you know, I don't know, our percentage of returns, this has been the highest percentage of returns over the last few years. So we'll go with that. And then we know what we have to work with. So one of our biggest things that's different for Oak Grove than it is for the other town schools, like I said, we have 3 big events throughout the year. Our opening day, our harvest dinner and curriculum night, which we'll talk about, and then later, kind of closing out the year, our family picnic. So why is our opening day different? Is because we still run a half day. We run a half day for all of our kiddos, but it's a family kind of event that we do. Families are welcomed into the classrooms. We do a big gathering with our first all-school sing with families and kids in the gym. Students and teachers then go to their classroom and basically say goodbye in the gym, and they go off. I do some of, you know, the basic stuff about PTO presented to introduce who they are, and some of the family engagement piece that they do. We talked a little bit about MTSS. We talked a little bit about PBIS, Title I. And then in that very short, like 25 minutes, I mean, it's just a snapshot. It's not anything big. But the important thing, then we do offer workshops. And so our workshops for families look like the following. So this year we had social emotional learning with Catherine, reading and more in the library, what is academic support, like office kind of questions, especially pre-K and kindergarten families. A lot of times would want to come in and they have all kinds of questions that are just like logistical kind of questions. So that's an offering. Tiered behavior support, Sandy and Heather and some of her staff run that workshop. Mindfulness for parents, that was a big one this year. Parent involvement with PTO, Food Connects with Sheila. And so they have an opportunity just to choose whatever workshop they want to go to. So they kind of go to a workshop for half an hour, they go to another workshop. Then we also did some Alice safety training with everybody coming back to the gym. And we conclude our day, then they meet their children at about 11 o'clock out on the playground. We offer pizza lunch for everybody, and then the kiddos all go home. And then the afternoon we continue with some other professional development. So right now that's Oak Grove. It's unique to us in running that half day. We're hoping that we can continue to run that half day program because we see it as really a very valuable piece of kind of starting out our year and offering that parent piece. Harvest dinner.
So, every November, we've started to have a
Just hit that one.
harvest supper and curriculum night. And initially, the curriculum night and harvest supper had been two separate events. And one of the challenges of having a small school like Oak Grove is the limited staff members. So one way to allow the school to do more with less staff members was to combine some events. And so the Harvest Supper Curriculum Night has everybody in the school really involved, from students to teachers. But then we do have two committees. There's an events committee and the Farm to School committee. And the Farm to School committee works with Food Connects, and Sheila Humphreys is the Oak Grove kind of Food Connects help. And then there's also Lizzie Rosenberg, who comes through from the co-op, and she does cooking with all the classes here at school. So there's a little video here that Lizzie will tell you a little bit about how it works.
About 60 to 70% of the food that we used for the harvest dinner in November and curriculum night came from the garden. It's never happened before. Sometimes it's 10% or 20%. This year, almost 70%. 200 people ate food at that harvest dinner.
So the school garden, it's right out on the playground. It's been out there roughly 10 years or so. And there's real challenges around having a school garden when you don't have like a designated person to do it. So we really needed to come up with a way to like give some real purpose and meaning to like having the school garden in the first place. And then some brainstorming we've done a couple years ago with the Farm to School committee was like, let's think about how we can produce like less stuff, focus stuff in the school garden, and then really think about how we can bring those things into the harvest supper. And that's just, it's so cool to see kids, and you saw the picture of the kids harvesting the beets. We didn't have the pictures of the same kids planting the seeds in the spring, but it's one of the opportunities that we have to like provide opportunities for kids that they may or may not get, depending on if their parents or grandparents are gardeners or if they have access to that kind of stuff. And like I said, with Lizzie coming in, so the whole wheat rolls, that was a collaborative thing where I think the third graders made the dough and got it all ready, and then the first graders actually like formed the dough into the rolls and all that stuff, put the stuff on top. You can see the artwork there. Kathy Crafts Allen, the art teacher, did some watercolor work with the kids. So there's a Farm to School poster that some of you may have hanging up at home. So she took some pictures from that and then kind of sketched out for the kids, and the kids painted those. The table there was decorated by hands from kids in pre-K. There's some boards that were donated and decorated. Beet cupcakes, which were probably the most popular thing, generally every year. And then there's a picture down at the bottom of kids peeling potatoes, getting things prepared for something. I think we were probably making some vegetable soup. I guess I can read that, but the Harvest Supper, it highlights the harvest of the garden. Each grade has a plot. Like I said, it's kind of changed from how it was originally, where we've been kind of telling the grades, like, here's the seeds we could use for the garden, and they planted like a specific thing, as opposed to like teachers just deciding to plant something they might have been interested in. Just so, again, we would have enough stuff to be able to prepare something for the harvest meal. Lizzie and the things that she's provided through the Brattleboro Food Co-op have been absolutely amazing, and without that kind of support, I can't imagine how we would be able to pull off the harvest supper. It's not all just about eating, though. The other important thing is, before people have a chance to enjoy the food at the harvest supper, every classroom has some type of thing to share with families coming to the classrooms. This year was a little bit different than years in the past, where this year it was kind of like teachers were given the opportunity to highlight something that you had been doing recently with your class that you would like to share with parents. In the past, we've done things like focused on math or literacy or like a science topic. This year is more of kind of an open house, and parents were encouraged to go in and check out as many classrooms as possible so they could kind of get a feel of just like what the different classrooms are like. And I tell you what, when you have an opportunity to like feed people, like Lizzie said, we fed 200 people, and like the place is always packed, and people are always really happy to have the opportunity to like bring some food to share, and then also the kids are super excited to share the food that they had a hand in making. So here it promotes a strong family and school community where members work together to create that evening of enjoyment. And it is super cool to see kids like taking some ownership around it and be like, hey mom, look what I made, or hey dad, look what we made. And it's really like, I don't know, unless you've seen it and experienced yourself, it's really hard to describe, I guess, like how powerful and how moving that can be. We also had some amazing support from other community members. Brooks Memorial Library set up a booth. They were doing like, you could sign up for a library card if you didn't have one. River Valley Credit Union, which if you aren't familiar with, they do that awesome savings program for kids. So for a penny a month, they can save towards a prize. One of the things I'd advocate for is every kid in town gets a thing, and we're putting a penny in their thing, and every kid has a savings account. That's just me. Everyone's Books helps us out. We have a book fair provided through Everyone's Books. Every student has a $5 voucher, and so when we had our book fair, every kid in the school was able to get at least one book with the $5 spread by school. Edible Brattleboro, which is another awesome resource. Marilyn, the woman on the right, is a member of our farm to school committee, and she comes in and she volunteers her time. She's done cooking with the kids in school as well, helping with the harvest supper, but she's also done an after school cooking class. And then the VSAC had a booth there with the college savings program, which is always helpful to kind of get families and kids thinking about learning beyond elementary school. That's what I got.
And then I'll just quickly finish up with our Oak Grove Family Picnic. Is usually at the end of May, 1st of June. You can see that all staff chip in terms of cooking. It's also a potluck, and just families just come, and the backyard out here is filled with families. We always have a bouncy house. The last few years we've had the Kona ice truck here. So, and students again, thanks to Title I and their support around funding, we are able to give all students a coupon so they can at least get one Kona ice. And so I think Kona Ice makes more off of what we pay them as opposed to the families, but it doesn't matter because they love it and it's great to have them here. And we also get a lot of donations. Our friends at CNS, Lawton Floor has given to us in the past, Brattleboro Pharmacy, Browns and Roberts. UNFI, yep, United Natural Foods. We ask and they provide, whether it's our Thanksgiving baskets, whether it's our picnic. They're just amazing. So those are our sponsors. So I'm going to introduce Jessica Bashford is our parent liaison, and she's going to talk a little bit about PTO and really just about parent engagement. There are probably some other parents, I don't know if you're going to pull them up with you or not, but
I tried.
You're going to have to just. Do you want me to click, or you want to move?
Sure, you can click. Yeah.
Okay.
So, hello, I'm Jessica Bashford. I'm a parent of a second grader here. I'm the parent liaison as of this year and the PTO chair as of last year. So I've been in the role now almost 2 years. When I became the chair of the PTO, I wanted to really ground my work in something. So I drafted this mission statement, which I don't really need to read verbatim. You can read it, but really I just wanted to root my work and help it be directed by something. So I really just think that I think everyone has something to offer, that like having an asset-based approach, and definitely parents and families have a lot of strengths, and I wanted to make sure that those strengths and interests and areas of concern were that PTO is a place where parents can come and feel really comfortable, and then help also serve as that bridge of communication between the parent community and administrators and teachers. So our mission statement, and then This is part of a slide that we put together for the first day workshop that Jerry spoke to, that we wanted to make sure that parents know that you can be engaged in lots of ways, not just through PTO. And so we just try to message that you know, you can really be engaged in the life of the school community in lots of ways, directly through your child's teacher, volunteering the class, just coming every week to the All Schools Sing. I think that's a really meaningful way for parents to come and be part of the school community. And then, of course, the obvious is getting involved with the parent group. So we meet monthly, and I really wanted to expand the role of kind of the PTO beyond fundraising when I became chair, and I think we have. I think there's still more work to do, but PTO meetings, we talk about a whole range of things, not just events. We talk a lot about areas of interest to parents, like it could be, you know, homework or after school programming, or playground improvement comes up a lot. So want to make sure that those meetings really, really diversify them from just sort of event planning, to really let parents feel they can come and bring, you know, their ideas, their concerns, their interests. And those are discussed, and then I can communicate those to teachers and administrators. So this just kind of lays out what we do, how I feel like we support students and families and staff. And I won't read each one, but one thing that I was excited about is that we started doing some surveying of parents last year. We sent home just kind of a general survey to try to find out what parents are, like what school events are of highest interest and most meaningful for families. We did that last year. We sent home an after-school program survey to one thing, we're a small school, and PTO and lots of parents wanted to help expand the offerings. I know we're going to talk about that later, so I won't linger there, but we've helped support and augment the offerings of after-school programs. And I kind of stuck at the end that we want to be an active member of our community. And one thing I was really excited about was last year we changed who we partner with on the book fair from Scholastic to our local community bookstore. So if we can find more ways to partner with local organizations and companies, and I think that's really exciting. So that's something I also kind of focus on. Yeah. There's another.
Nope.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anything else? John's quiet in the back. John Atkinson, go ahead and move the camera back to John. He doesn't have to speak. He doesn't have to speak, but I do want to do a shout out to John Atkinson. John is one of our very active parents. He's has offered 2 or 3, maybe 3 after school programming things with robotics with Eric, a science club, and I think and some other programs and math science. So he's really helped as a parent, saying, I understand that you don't have a lot of staff, but we really want to do a lot of after-school programming. So, John, see? What do you know?
I guess just tying in with what Jess said, so we put out a survey asking parents and their kids what they would be interested in, and gave some options, and some STEM things kind of floated to the top. Some kind of science-y stuff. There was also a lot of interest in language and arts. So the PTO kind of took that and said, okay, well, what can we do to get those going? So we did some fundraising to get math science here last spring, and then I did a science club this fall with the little kids, and Eric and I have been working on this robotics club. So and then I know Jess is working on the culture world. What's it called exactly?
Around the World After School Language and Culture Club.
Right, so it's kind of like a direct feedback from the parents to the programs that we're trying to,
So moving into our second theme of the night is around maximizing learning. So some of our continuous improvement plans goals are to provide enriching, engaging programming, to continue to identify, create, and monitor our effectiveness of our tiered interventions. Looking at a master schedule that supports adequate time for tiered interventions and team collaboration, and that, of course, is something that's ongoing. maintain a system of screening and diagnostic assessments, ongoing teacher training in UDL, utilize coaching staff and mentors to support our work. So this is Laura Haskins, one of our academic support teachers.
Hello. So these two slides have a little bit of history to them, but we thought it was very important to keep this alive. So in 2007, the first picture there is from Scholastic News. It's a first grade newspaper. And the first grade class read about Wangari Maathai, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And her goal for the year was for the planet, the entire world, to plant 1 billion trees. So we read about it and thought we needed to be a part of this. So we planted a tree on our playground. We contacted Brattleboro Tree Advisory Board and Trees Please. They came and helped us, and we started a tradition. From that year forward, every year we planted a tree on our playground. And we did not realize it at the time, but we did not have any before that. So there was no shade, no place to hang out on a hot day underneath. So this was very powerful for us, and it started a tradition. 2 years later, we got a phone call from the local boards that helped us plant each year, and Wangari was coming to town to promote a local film that was being done by Marlboro Productions called Taking Root. So they asked if she would, if we would be willing to have her come plant a tree with us. So of course, how do we say no to that? She's the one who inspired us. So we actually got to meet her, and she came on a Saturday. We had lots of students and staff come out and stay, spend this special day with her. It was one of those moments for those of us that were there that Erica said you cannot forget. It was life-changing. As we were finishing the planting, a student, a sixth grader, just randomly said, "I think we should sing to the tree." So Andy Davis was there, and he led us in these green hills, and we all put our hands along the tree, as many of us could fit, and that's the picture that has kind of become iconic for us. Then, to keep it alive, because this was 10 years ago now, the tree has been outside. We've always wanted to have a special way of noting it and letting people know, so it's not hung on, what the small fry practice is, and letting it just be known that this is a special tree. So last year, Jerry and Greg and I were talking, and Jerry came up with a great idea of creating an outdoor classroom space. So the design of the benches was created by Greg and Jerry. Greg, our custodian, built the benches himself. Our Oak Grove Green team created a plaque and paid for that with the money we've raised by recycling materials throughout the last 10 years. And last spring, we had a very simple service, or dedication, which is just what Wangari had wanted. On that Saturday, we weren't allowed to have any fanfare. We couldn't publicize that she was coming. She really wanted it simple. So we did the same thing in her honor, and then we sang to the tree. So this is just a 5-second clip here to...
These green hills and silver waters are my home. They belong to me.
So it's just important to us at Oak Grove, and being a small school and being in Vermont, to keep Wangari's spirit alive, but also the work and nature and the environment and what we can do to be a part of that. And now it will keep going by all this outdoor use, and it's also become a really nice social gathering place for kids at recess. We're noticing that it's serving a lot of purposes.
So, what am I doing?
There's some audio that should be working.
Okay.
This is a model that shows how our school screens for early intervention. All students are screened and placed in appropriate groups during our skills block. If more intervention is needed, kids are discussed at the educational support team meetings and progress is tracked with the appropriate intervention. If rate of improvement is still low, students are placed in a Tier 3 model group. In such a small school, it is very easy for students to receive specialized targeted instruction, and maybe that means joining a group with a special educator.
Just hit the next button.
So speaking to that, here's an example of a current third grader's reading intervention since kindergarten. When we did her screening, she showed that she definitely needed some intense intervention. So we placed her informally into a special ed special education reading group for support, and she stayed there all year. She did not go through the special ed eval process, but she did receive what she needed for intervention. By the end of that year, she was showing significant growth, and then for first and second grade, she moved into receiving her intervention with an academic support teacher in a small group. And this current year, she started the same way. And by this current January, when we did all our data screenings, she has now reached complete grade level in all her literacy areas and will be moving out of a small group intervention and receiving skill work in other areas. And I don't know if you can read that kind of chart if you've seen those, but she's the little purple dot that moves throughout the years. And the black line is the target line we were aiming for. So very significant growth through the years.
What's the next? Hit this one again?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
This is an example of a kindergarten student who showed up as needing an intense amount of support identifying numbers in the beginning of the year. He was easily grouped with other students receiving special ed and made a tremendous leap of growth, so he came out of the group. After a couple of weeks, his classroom teacher noticed he was forgetting the information, so he was placed back into the group. This is a good example of not waiting for a student to fail before intervening.
You want to speak to that at all? Anymore? No.
There's one more.
Was there one more? Sorry. This one?
Yep.
Oh. It's these things that mess me up.
This is an example of a first grader who did not qualify for special ed services but was able to stay in the Tier 3 group due to the dynamic of a small school. As you can see, he started off the year reading 0 sounds in a minute for nonsense word fluency, and now has huge personal growth and can read around 30 sounds when timed in a minute.
I'm just glad.
All right, so I teach 4th grade. We get to teach everything. I love to teach math, and then everything else is just gravy, I guess. But math is really why I would show up for work every day. But I love working at Oak Grove because the kids get such focused attention. Kids at Oak Grove, generally speaking, are very solid readers by the time I get a chance to work with them. This student here, we have an example of a student who, when she started at Oak Grove as a kindergartner, she was referred to EST, which is the Educational Support Teams. She had some reading, writing, social-emotional issues, attention, speech and language, but at the time she did not qualify for an AEP. Then as a second grader, the student did meet the criteria for a student with a language-based reading disability and qualified for special education. So then, once the student had received eligibility for receiving special ed, she received, well, I guess in kindergarten, she received additional 30 minutes of phonological awareness and letter recognition daily with a special educator. She did show improvement, but she wasn't quite able to get to the point of being fluent. The district literacy coach, Brian Bittner, came in and he did some observations and gave feedback. In 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, the student worked in small groups, did tutoring 3 days a week after school, also continued with the phonological awareness practice using the Linda Mood phoneme sequencing, and there's the Wilson reading program. In 4th grade, again, in consultation with the district literacy coach, we had a small group of students who were kind of struggling to show progress using the Tier 1 curriculum, which is Reading Street. We had them use another Tier 1 curriculum, which was Language Live was the name of the program. There was kind of traditional delivery from a teacher, but then it also had a computer component as well. I would say in general we kind of saw mixed results with that. But then by the time the student was in 5th and 6th grade, receiving special education services, interventions, tutoring, and participating in small group work, the student was showing some very impressive progress that she had made. Here's a similar chart where showing where she was at in January of first grade. So the dot down there, very close to like 1 or, you know, just a few words a minute. And then as she's progressing through the grades, you know, certainly by the time she's in the end of 3rd grade, she's getting a little bit closer. 4th grade, by the time she's in 5th grade, she's no longer one of the, you know, there's still the whiskers on that box and whisker plot, the math guy for you, are below her dot. And then by 6th grade, the target is that bold line in the middle, and her blue dot is right there. Now the cool thing we have is some audio of this student from when she was a 1st grader, and then some audio as a 6th grader, and it's amazing to hear the difference in the same student reading.
Meg had a fun.
What does Jay say?
Jump.
And now, as a 6th grader.
Surrounded by barren fields, it seemed lonely and vulnerable. There were patches on the roof of where the shingles had come off, and most of the paint was chipped away. Most of the chips chipping away. The house looked shabby and neglected. The inside of the house was no cheerier.
So it's amazing to hear that. And then you know just the self-confidence or the self-esteem of that student when they go from feeling themselves as a struggling reader as a 1st grader to feeling the empowerment that you feel when you're like, you know, an established reader is a really powerful thing.
So I don't think we have anybody from pre-K, but I did want to go without having a few slides about our pre-K. That's our youngest learners, and I don't really, I don't have a lot. I don't have any audio. Oh, actually, that's not true. I do. I do. But they're very much, you know, being in our 2nd year, they're very much a part of our community. It's kind of like having that child. We're like, what did we ever do before we had children? And now it's like, what did our school ever feel like before we had, you know, 4-year-olds in the building? They do have an opportunity to enjoy specials like our older kids do. They have PE once a week. They meet with the art teacher once a week. They meet with Kate Billings, our music director, once a week. And they have library time once a week. So they're getting the specials. They just don't have Spanish, but they're getting all the other specials. So, and see, I forgot, I do have a video.
Are these two the same?
Yes!
Yes, how do you know?
I know, because this one and this one are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
When I do like this, they're the same.
How did you find out that they were the same?
Because I count them.
You counted? What did you count?
4 and then the next 4.
What was the other thing that you did too? Didn't you put the ruler somewhere?
Yeah, to count them.
I mean, just like all of our Brattleboro town schools, you know, Oak Grove is not unique in that sense that you as our school board and the entire Brattleboro community and surrounding areas, you know, always they come out for the arts, very supportive of the arts in our schools. So we just want to make sure that we don't forget and we highlight those. And Kate Billings is here. Kate is our new music director, and she's going to talk about her program.
So we have a pretty vibrant band program for such a small school. I'm actually from Washington State originally, and the schools that I taught in didn't even have band in 4th grade. They only had it in 5th and 6th, and the numbers at Oak Grove are just almost as big as any other elementary school that I was at, even though they had, you know, 4 or 5 classes of each grade, and here we only have 1. So it's amazing how many kids participate. We do offer band from 4th through 6th grade, so they get to start very early. They have lots of performance opportunities because we have all school sing. We do concerts. We also do the parade at the end of the year. We have small group lessons every Tuesday, and then we also have our whole band group. So the kids are actually getting a private lesson. Well, not private because they're in a small group with other people with their instrument, but that's a pretty big deal. We offer a lot of instruments: flute, clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, glockenspiel, and percussion, and I have kids doing each one of those. So they have a pretty wide variety. We had a participation spike this year for 4th graders. 80% of all 4th graders are in band. 60% in 5th grade, and then we have a smaller number in 6th grade. But it's pretty impressive how many kids in 4th grade are in band. Sometimes I go to the 4th grade class to make an announcement about band, and I think I'm just going to pull out a couple kids, and it's like, oh, well, everybody in here except like 2 people are in band. So, and those 2 people were kind of sad afterwards, but they didn't turn in their paperwork, so maybe they can do it next year. Do I skip like this? We also offer chorus. Something really cool about chorus is that 66%, like over half of those chorus kids are also band kids. So they're getting a lot of music every week. It's 30 minutes of extra musical instruction every Wednesday, so I'm very lucky that teachers let me pull their kids out 2 days in a row. I take them out all day on Tuesday throughout the day, and then I take them out at the end of the day on Wednesday. So it's amazing that this school values music so much that I can do that. We teach some pretty advanced music. We teach 2-part vocal music right now, and then in the spring we're going to have an intergenerational chorus, which lets us do a little bit more tricky music because we have people from the community coming in and singing with them, so they get a chance to really stretch what they're able to do. The nice thing about having all school sing every morning is it offers lots of opportunities for us to perform. So anytime the kids are doing something really well, I say, okay, well, let's just do it for all school sing next week. So it really validates what they're doing to have them have so many chances to perform it instead of just master it and then move on. For general music, we do offer that, like Jerry said, from pre-K all the way through 6th grade, and they get that once a week. 3rd graders do get an extra class, which is pretty cool. We offer an extra 30 minutes every week so that they can learn a recorder, and they get really excited about that because that's their first instrument that they really master, and it does prepare them pretty well for band because they're reading music, they're becoming pretty literate in an instrument. Like right now we're only about halfway through the year, and if I put a piece of music that had about 5 notes on it up on the board, the kids could do it without me really giving them much instruction, which they think is pretty cool. In every class, not just in recorder class, we try to really vary it. They get a lot of experience with musical instruments. I got really lucky. I inherited a huge music room with lots and lots of different types of instruments. And the gift of the small school for music is that we have a lot of community involvement. I know everybody in the school, so when we do performances like All School Sing, it's easy to get volunteers because I knew all the kids within the first couple weeks and they all know each other, so they're pretty comfortable with performing. I've never seen as many soloists as I have at this school because they're all friends. They all know each other by name. They've been in class together since they were in kindergarten, so the 6th graders will get up and sing a song in front of the whole school and think nothing of it, which is pretty great. So, is there? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. So a little bit more about All School Sing. Every week, all year long, starting with the very first day of school, which was kind of scary for me to get up there. My first introduction to the whole school was getting up on stage to do All School Sing. But they're very welcoming. It's a lot of community building because parents get to come. We really try to invite parents every week, and it gives teachers a chance to sit down and talk with parents in a non-stressful environment. You don't have to talk about what your kid did or didn't do that week. It's just you're there for coffee and singing. It's also a chance to practice skills. Like I said before, it validates what the kids are doing when they are going to perform it next week at All School Sing rather than just move on and forget it. We also have a chance to do announcements, skits, leadership from students, community building presentations. Today Eric gave us a presentation on beats, which was fun. And this shared experience, like I said, with a small school where everybody knows each other, we're all sitting in this nice small space and singing and dancing together, it really builds a sense of community. It's a really great way to start our day.
Thank you. Just some of the field trips, I'll just run through these. I was told staff it would be an hour and we're a little over. So we do have several different field trips that we go on that are probably pretty similar, but are supported with PTO and local budget money. So the trip to Montpelier, 6th graders going to Keene State. Do you guys want to talk about that anymore?
It's an annual trip that the entire 6th grade class takes to Keene State, and it's very exciting to watch these kids' response to being on a college campus. Many of them have never been exposed to this, and it's just an opportunity for myself and Will Lipinski to really get the kids to really see that they could go to this school, to really begin to think about you can go to college. And the way they set it up at Keene State is that it's a scavenger hunt tour, so that kids break down into groups. They're given cards that force them to engage with the college students, and they have to ask, you know, which dorm is it that is haunted? And then they get to go find it. And it's really, there's things that take them off the beaten path, and they learn all sorts of things that we're surprised that they've learned. And then they come back and they have a great meal in a real college campus, which, you know, the cafeteria there is, Will and I have our, you know, sort of try and keep our wits about them, so that, about us, ourselves, so that they stop eating ice cream at some point in time. Because we do have to drive home with them on the bus. But it's a great, great event, and I'm really grateful. We're both really grateful to have PTO's support to make that happen in years past.
We also have for some of our enrichment at all of our classrooms, pre-K even, up to grade 6, contract certain number of hours with BEAC to either go to the Environmental Ed Center, or BEAC comes here, and we'll do classroom activities with students. Sometimes they take them out just in our play yard, and sometimes we walk around the neighborhood and do some activities. And then we've had some different environmental ed programs. We had owls come to visit last year. We've had the Caterpillar Lab, excuse me, from Keene. They were here 2 years ago, maybe. And then what's the Vermont Energy Veep also comes, and every spring they come and do free programming, and it's very hands-on, and the kids love it. So again, after-school programming, something that all 3 schools, all town schools participate in, and we have our homework club. We have a variety of different offerings, from tutoring, again, the mad science, language and culture, jump roping, cooking, crafts, robotics. We've had computer club in the past and some other things. There's just some, again, the fundraising for mad science happened because of PTO, so I thank them for that. We also have NEYT Town Theater that is part of NEYT's Town Theater Grant, and they've actually started it this year. It's a little bit different, where kids are from each, I don't know if it's happening at each school, but I think so, right? And did they all meet together down at NEYT today? Sorry, we're having a little moment right now. Yeah. So, because our small group of 9, which I really like it this year, because what's happened is, I think we start to see a decline in participation, because I think that kids were just getting nervous about going to Green Street or going to NEYT kind of by themselves. So now we have 9 students from Oak Grove that this is their Oak Grove, their core group of NEYT. They stay here for 2 days a week, and then 1 day a week they meet up with the other town schools, and they're down at the theater, and that's where they'll do their performance. So it's a nice, it's under it's a new director, and it's always been a great program. So I think has helped our participation rate go up. So being a small school, just to conclude, is that we're better we feel that we're better together, and I just have another video clip just to kind of close.
What I like about a smaller school is you get to know like everybody there. I know almost everybody's name here, and whenever new people come here, I learn their names pretty fast. And another really good thing about having a school that has less people is that you have more friends. Pretty much everybody at school is your friend.
And that's it. So thank you. I was a little panicked this morning on my way in. I just have to say, I was panicking. I'm like, my staff are not going to show up. We're better together, but they're not going to be here. How's it going to look? But they did, and I appreciate your time and your commitment to this work, because it's really a reflection of their work. I just get to go along for the ride, so I appreciate all of them and all of you for listening. Yeah, Spoon.
Just as a preference, I have a very strong belief that what we do in our schools reflects a lot of what happens in life after school. That in fact, education is kind of shapes the country that we have, the society we have. So when I think, I look at this, and of course, all the presentations I've seen, all the schools, I can't help thinking, geez, I wish I went to a school like this. But in fact, I liked elementary school too, and in my day, in my place. And I wondered, one question I have, there's an emphasis, in fact, this is how you started and this is how you ended, on not just reading skills and stuff, this is important, and math skills and whatever, but in trying to bring children to become socialized, to cooperate, to be friendly, to solve problems, to be considerate, to be tolerant, etc. And I wondered, number one, are there any measurements taken for these kinds of qualities at the beginning and the end, between kindergarten or first grade and sixth grade, to see if this kind of socialization is actually embedded in the child. And then, of course, and this isn't specifically related, but it would be interesting to see, to take similar kinds of tests to see how much of that remains by the time a kid is in 9th grade and in 12th grade. And the point, one of the reasons I ask this is because I sit here wondering if somehow this enormous effort that goes into socializing children in the elementary school is not continued when they get into 7th grade and on up. One of the more frequent things I've heard in my life, and I think we've all heard this many times, is you go out into other places and you do something that's not right, that's laughed at, and what you hear is someone says, "Welcome to the real world, kid." And what is meant by that? 2 and 2 is real in 2nd grade and 10th grade. Science is real all the way through. History is real all the way through and after. So what is it? What is somebody saying when they say, "Welcome to the real world"? What are they saying is not true? And I think what they're saying is that all the stuff you believed about cooperation and trust and respect and concern and care, community, etc., that's what's not true.
So Spoon,
that's the real world.
Is there a specific question you wanted to ask to?
Yeah, is that what I'm trying to get at? Is there a sense that there's a direct, is there follow through between what we do here in the elementary schools and what are the
maybe Lyle is best to
teachers'
answer that
concern?
from her perspective.
So I would say one of the things that happens, at least at BAMS, is they do, what's it called? You were there, DD. Developmental designs, which is carryover from what their students in our elementaries are doing with working together in a classroom. How do we cooperate? What are we doing to help each other? Learning empathy, that type of thing is happening in BAMS. So I would say that there is certainly some carryover from 6th grade to 7th grade here. From 8th grade to 9th grade, I don't believe that we do any more of that specific teaching, but we do have the advisories where small groups of kids, are together for 4 years, and it's again a way for kids to have relationships with an adult in the school. I would say that having relationships with each other and a relationship with a trusting adult is one of the things that we really focus on, and because we know the importance of that for all kids.
And is there any way that the schools do to try to measure that progress to see if in fact by the time a kid leaves high school, what is really embedded there?
I don't think we have any measurements, but in order to graduate from high school, you do have to do a certain amount of volunteering. You do have to take some classes that, for example, diversity. So there is, it's not as though it's only taught now and then is forgotten about, but I think there's as a parent, I guess I'm speaking, from watching kids go through all of the system, I think there's a larger emphasis on the younger child and trying to get these qualities ingrained and established.
I understand that, and there should be. Yeah. That's where it has to start. It's most important. But if it's not continued, then it becomes
and then there's parents.
An exercise in futility.
That's where parents also supposed to come in. Any other board member questions? Or
not a question, but just a thank you. Thank you all for coming in. Your presentation shows your devotion to these kids, and all the hard work.
And your enthusiasm is definitely there. Thank you again for coming in.
I was just going to say, it's very nice hearing about all of the things that are particular to Oak Grove's culture. That, you know, all of the schools have so many things that they're all aligned on, but then it's neat hearing about the little uniquenesses of each place. So
The Grovies.
I enjoy that.
I wanted to collect
And,
enough.
oh yeah, make sure we get these passports back. These are going to be important to someone.
Keep your Grovies. You can
I can
okay,
keep
can
my-
we put them in the, I think we should put them in for the schools.
Oh, for the 10,000.
Yes, for 10,000.
If you want to.
I think we
That's up to
should,
you.
yes.
I'm going to keep mine and
You
impress
may-
all the Oak Grove kids to come over to my house. Did you learn a Grove you're out in? I did a good job listening at the school board meeting.
So you're all welcome to stay on or to go. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Lisa, are you going to record yourself for? That better make it into the big pile there, Jerry. Don't just put mine in to be handed back out. That needs to go into the big pile. Okay.
All right, so we'll move right on into committee reports. The policy council did not meet, and neither David nor Deb is here, but they both confirmed that. Energy committee, David's not here, they haven't met. Finance committee has not met. And diversity?
We actually moved our meeting to the 30th, so I'll report
So
back
good.
after that.
Administrative reports. Jerry, did you have anything more to add? We have your written report as well. You're good?
Yeah, I think I'm fine.
And look at this, Kelly just walked out of the room. All right, so Mark, you're on.
Okay, so winter sports has begun. We've just finished our first 2 weeks of winter sports, and it's been going very smoothly, which is nice. After school program, session 2 began on Monday. Again, we have about 70% of the kids in our school participating. Our school musical is part of session 2, and this year we're doing the play Shrek. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one. So if you want to put it in your calendars for down the road here, March 28th and March 29th are evening performances. And I'll obviously talk about that more as we get closer. School parent climate survey results are out, which Jerry discussed. So I'd like to share those at a future school board meeting. Happy to say in all categories we continued to show improvement, so just very exciting. A PTO initiative, which is new this year, is we're going to host a bingo night, and essentially it's just kind of a family fun night, and that's happening on February 1st. We're focusing on our Green Street families, but folks from outside of the community are welcome to join us as well. And let's see, last but not least, I had a teacher from the Vermont Annual Kindergarten Conference reach out to me last week about there's this annual statewide conference in Burlington each year, and this year they want a 2-hour workshop on trauma-informed practices. And this woman was given my name and Green Street School's name as a school that's really showing best practice around that. So we're going to send a team up to Burlington in March for a 2-hour workshop that we will put together for all educators in Vermont around trauma-informed schools. So it's kind of exciting.
Nice to be recognized.
Yep.
Kelly, we skipped you. We're coming back.
Hi. I have two pieces of good news that I wanted to share. One is that our HCRS clinician, Lori Macy, recently got her personal dog certified through Therapy Dogs of Vermont. So every Wednesday, Soxy, the yellow lab, is joining us at Academy School all day. And today was her second day. And it's just been, I mean, we've heard about it from Green Street and we've hoped for it. And now we have our own. And it's just been this amazing thing to have a dog in the hallways and see the staff and the kids respond. On her first day, Soxy joined a student who was being questioned by DCF and helped keep that child calm while they were talking about something really difficult. The upper grades had a visit with Soxy, and some of the kids said, you know, my day was made just petting this dog. And then you've got little kids who don't typically like to read and they want to jump at the chance to read to Soxy. So it's really exciting to have that starting out.
Just to interrupt you for a second,
Yeah.
there was a dog in your presentation. Do you have a therapy dog coming too, or is it a?
But it's not real. It's not real regular. I don't even know. I don't know what the schedule is. But Catherine has a contact where the dog comes maybe once every 2 months, I think. So we haven't been able to break through and get that like on a regular basis yet.
Sorry, it's exciting. No, that's great. And my other piece was about parent surveys as well. We achieved a record high of 47% response rate, up from 16%. So a much more, I think, valid response. Was able to share out the results at our last ACT meeting and get some feedback from parents more specifically because the survey is a little vague. For example, one of the categories that we would like to improve upon is how to communicate more regularly about academic progress with parents. So what does that mean? I said to the parents, what would you like? We have conferences, we have report cards, but we talked about classroom blogs and newsletters, and at the upper grade level, when that becomes a little more infrequent because just sort of younger grades tend to do that a little bit more, I think. So specific ways and feedback, which was great. So I was happy to get more results.
All right, Lyle?
Yes. So one of the things that I don't think any of the principals reported out, on January 7th, their school leadership teams and possibly the 6th grade, at least some of 6th grade, went to Landmark College and spent the day there working with groups of from the high school, groups of students that had prepared some activities around things like empathy, how to talk with other students, how to be able to say to another student, you know, that bothers me. Judith Palmieri was one of the people from Academy who helped put that together. And then, of course, Tracy, Catherine, I think Caitlin might have been there from just to chaperone the students. And part of that, I was able to pull all of the adults at one point, and we used a new website from Racial Equity Vermont, and it was developed by in part with Vermont NEA. And in that, at that website, there is a film called I Am From Here, and I would say it's a very, very moving, short 30-minute film. Hopefully, each staff will be able to look at that film at some point. I've shared it with all the administrators. And Martha Allen, who was on the committee that put this website together, came down and also was able to lead a discussion about this film, as well as looking at the website. The website has a lot of different resources. One of the interesting things that we actually looked at and spent some time on is what happens if you're in the hallway as an adult and you hear something that is bothersome to you. It's easy just to walk on by, but also there are things that we can say to sort of stop that behavior. And so there are some tools on here for adults within the building so that they can find ways to say, you know, that comment really bothered me, or is there a way that we could say that differently, that type of thing. So I would urge you to look at that. So it's called racialequityvermontnea.com. I want to make sure that you all know that you will not be presenting a budget at the representative town meeting. We had information from the agency that, yes, right now we're in a pause, but we are still considered a merged district, and the merged district must present a merged budget at an annual meeting. This annual meeting cannot be set until we have the organizational meeting. At this time, the organizational meeting is set for February 27. 7 o'clock at the Brattleboro Union High School gym. At that time, transitional board members will be sworn in, and the election date and the annual meeting date will be set. And it's after that the group of transitional board members will come together and start creating that merged budget. So you will not be presenting a school, a budget to the representative town meeting.
So can I?
Yes.
A couple things. One is that I happen to be scheduled to be out of town, so that's the first meeting. And it's good that we're all planning on being there, but do we want to name right now Kim or Robin, one of you two? I'm assuming David's still going to be able to be there, but I'm in town for the first original schedules, but not by the time we've changed it. I have business travel. One of you two want to say that you're going to be there for sure? Do you know Jack's basketball?
What is
February
27th? There's not a game at home because we're using the gym.
Then yes, I will be there.
Okay,
So
I
yes,
think
I
I'll
can-
be there too. I'm just gonna take a quick look here.
Yes, I will be there. I was planning on attending all of the meetings anyway, so.
Right. I'll actually be there too.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the only, there hasn't been any other dates announced of the other
Right.
meetings yet.
Yeah. Well, there was one when we
Right,
canceled.
the one
yes,
that didn't
yeah,
happen.
that's the
and
other
this
one.
is the- okay.
And so do we want to specifically say that one of you is the representative for that
voting member.
night? Yeah, because it's.
And David is the other one, assuming he is able to still make it.
Yes.
We need to do that, don't we, Lyle? So
It would make sense that you would.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion?
I guess, I would make a motion that Kim would be there for this meeting in my spot. Any second to that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, so then we're officially there. The second part, when you read through that, just so we understand, we have a town meeting representative town meeting information night that we have traditionally done.
What will you do?
I don't think that's currently scheduled though, is it?
I'm wondering if it's scheduled. I'm wondering if it should be at the same time, because if we don't have a budget, we've already been talking about what we wanted to present to town meeting representatives. I don't know if it's wrong to present something. I mean, that was kind of the thought that a lot of us had throughout the whole study committee process of the merger, that it was good to present something. But is there something scheduled by the town already? How do we?
I think the town, from emailing, unrelated to this, I was emailing with Peter Elwell about childcare earlier today for the town meeting, and he just mentioned one informational meeting. And that's the same thing that I think I saw mentioned elsewhere by Hillary, maybe.
And that's the select
So I think
board
it's
town.
they're planning on, they were thinking it was just the one meeting, since we aren't presenting a budget unless we want to tell them we want to have this meeting.
Well, and the other part as well would be just to remember, because Robin and I, you actually have it sitting there. Let me see, I'll read the wording.
This?
It notes that we are town meeting representatives. So I guess we still are that, right?
Yes.
Even-
That was the thing I was gonna ask too. I'm like, do we still get to vote at the meeting?
Because it says if you are a town
Even though we're
meeting
not
rep, you
presenting
need to
anything.
go.
And we're still re-elected.
Yes.
So I would assume that we still get to vote at it even though we're not presenting anything.
It says as a select board member to the select board, to the school board. As a school board member, you become a voting ex officio town meeting member. What's ex officio mean again? Means I don't vote? No, voting ex
Voting, yeah.
officio. So I guess you're not really official, that's the ex.
You're an ex-official.
So we just came in without being voted to being a town meeting.
Well, you're still a town
Member.
meeting rep as a school
No,
board
but that's what it
member.
means.
But you're
Ex
not
officio.
you're not a school board director anymore.
No.
No,
Yeah.
this is
Oh.
for, you're not a town meeting representative, but you're still allowed to vote at the meeting, I think is what that means.
It
I'm
means
not
you
sure the
became a
actual term.
town meeting member without being voted in as a town meeting member.
Okay.
That's the ex officio.
I see.
So, but we are voting. So we should still be showing up at town meeting and voting on town stuff. It says if you're currently a town meeting, you have to resign and another is appointed in your place.
So it doesn't mean that you won't present, because you could present anything that's happened with this year's budget, where you stand at this point in the year.
But that's not what we would normally be presenting about. at these meetings, we're usually presenting about
Next
next
year's
year's budget, and don't see anything much about what happened in the past year, except for with the informational meeting.
Right, and it does say here that there are typically 2 pre-town meeting information sessions, and they're usually held the week prior to town meeting, depending on schedule at Academy School. Exact dates will be sent to you in early March.
I don't know if we have much to say at the pre-town meeting since there isn't a budget, but at town meeting itself, I feel like we should be giving a good report on the whole, on this whole Act 46, where it stands.
I don't think we
what's
give
happening.
anything if it's not on the agenda. That would have
What
to
do you
be
mean
on,
it's not on the agenda?
town meeting has an agenda.
We have time as the school board.
No, we don't anymore.
Because we're not presenting a budget for
Yeah.
anyone to vote on.
So why
So-
does that mean we don't have?
Because that's the only thing that's ever been on the agenda was
Well,
the,
that's all that we've used it for.
then you'd have to put something on an agenda is what I'm saying. The agenda has always been just the
2 budgets.
the budget and then any specific, it's worded in there
It's
actually.
word items,
It
everything.
says this, it's actually right in here and all this. It says that you would vote on any town, what is it? It's those numbered things, like shall we pay an article, that's what it's called. It's shall we pay
Would you,
the town school board members a salary? Should we
Right.
have any?
So that's gonna be on for you, because you will still need to be, you're still running and you'll still be meeting, so there'll be something about your salary being prorated. In many towns, they have something that says any other business that comes before the school district. That could be a time when someone might want to discuss Act 46.
I sort of feel like the people are going to have a lot of questions about what is going on with this. So I think what we can decide, I believe we are able to decide this, is do we want to have an informational night to answer all those questions, or do we want to ask the town to put us on the agenda at the meeting to talk about that, even though there isn't any actionable items, it's just like us explaining stuff.
And the other thing, I guess I would say I felt like the town informational meeting has been like 2 parts. One is what's gone on in our schools and like what we've been keeping notes throughout the year on a video like we did last year. Like these are highlights of things that are going on in our schools. And here's the budget that supports all these great things that are going on. So we could still invite the public and do an information night with that sort of information, and we could do the Act 46 answers at that. It's much more informal, and definitely town meeting gets long with a lot of other stuff.
We want to have as many people listening to this, and at actual town meeting in March, in the 3rd week, I don't know what day it is when
It's on there.
all the town meeting reps will be gathered, all the administrators, all town workers, and a lot of people from the public. There's always 200 people there at the very least. And that seems like the appropriate time to fill everybody in about where we stand, what's going on and where we stand with Act 46, what's going to happen, what can they expect to happen, and then answer any questions the best we can.
Well, I think the thing to remember, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but the thing to remember is that the town information night, if we propose to Peter Elwell and or whoever, I guess it'd be Peter, that we would like to have our normal meeting, then we're inviting people to come, right? And people could come and we can say whatever we'd like to.
Normal meeting
at that.
referring to what?
The normal
The informational
informational night meeting. Once we get to Saturday, the only business that can come up is under specific categories. So it, like Lyle's saying, it can come up under any other business if someone asks a question of us, but we wouldn't even be in the front of the
So what we
room.
need is a motion then to
I think we need to talk to Peter
to
Elwell.
suspend the rules and ask the
Or we could
town
be
meeting
proactive
members
and just ask Peter Elwell if he would put it on the agenda.
if it's not too. I guess it isn't.
It's
No,
not
it's
too
not too late at all to do it.
No, it's the perfect time for this because this
Yeah,
stuff is
okay.
pretty put together.
All right. Well, that makes it simple. I'm sure he will.
So I guess the question is, do we want to have an informational night?
I think that's still the question, yes.
If there's something that is important to talk about that we're not going to talk about at the meeting itself, perhaps, but I don't know what.
The only thing that you're suggesting talking about at the meeting itself is the status of the merger.
Yeah, that's what most people don't fully understand.
The town informational meeting has always been a way to get out the good work that's going on at our schools.
I think it's also kind of like to, in the past years that I've attended it, it's like explaining to the town, this is the stuff that you're going to be voting on the budget, and here's why it's important. So that's why it kind of seems a bit ambiguous now of like, well, should we still have this meeting even though the people are not going to be allowed to vote on it? And if so, should it be the same structure as before or different?
So here's a wild and wacky thought. We've already talked about having BCTV put together a video. Do we want to forego an actual meeting and just try to pull together things in the video, and instead of making it, last year we tried to make it really short, so 10 minutes I think was the maximum we let it go, so that we didn't take up a lot of time at the town informational night. Maybe we just do it on video and then no one has to worry about coming out or anything, and we just have that stuff all done on video.
We could send a link out to all of the town
meeting
reps.
I think that's a good idea. I think all three schools have kind of done their own informational nights.
Yeah.
And we've been taking notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
taking notes.
So if we did do that.
But can I just ask one thing?
Yeah.
I know that we're not the merged transitional board, but just to understand how the future part would work, then once that board organizes and sets an election date, I mean, that's one of the things, but then wouldn't they also have to set very right away a date to present the budget to people and an informational night on that?
Yes.
So
They will set an annual meeting date, yes.
we could utilize the same videos if we wanted to have a presentation at that meeting, that informational meeting.
That information meeting, I think, will be largely only numbers on the budget. I don't see it having any information on the schools, but I like the idea that we would have the video created, and if people in Guilford, say, would have any questions about why we have behavioralists,
Okay.
we could have that being answered in our video.
Okay.
So I'm kind of liking the video myself, too. One thing, too, from a budget standpoint, this probably sounds stupid, but we always pay every year to have snacks at that thing, so we have that portion that can move directly over to the video. It's not a huge amount, but it's usually $75 to $100. And I think last year, do you remember, it was like $200 is all we paid.
You have to probably talk to CORE about that.
We could probably find it in here, too.
Yeah, and it probably would take a little bit longer.
Exactly, if we do more.
Yeah, do it a little bit longer.
So perhaps we should do a couple motions here.
Okay, I'm going to move that we allocate the necessary amount to create a video. Did we vote on that before already? Okay, to create a informational video.
We did vote on something about having, Kelsey, do you remember? That we voted on creating a video and to look at it, but I don't think we put
Okay.
money on it.
Just in case, I will move that we pay Brattleboro CTV to make a video for us to use and send to the town reps and possibly to other union members.
Second.
Not to exceed.
$200? Is that the
I think
good
you
amount?
better do 4.
Yeah, I would do
400?
4, just to be on the safe
Okay,
side.
not to exceed $400.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. I'd like to make a motion that we officially ask Peter Elwell, which you've already noted down, but that then it's official, that we would like to have a discussion of the merger process and wherever we are in it in March at the town meeting.
Second.
And be put on the agenda.
Okay.
All in favor of that one?
Aye.
Okay.
And you will be in a different place because by then the transitional meeting, the organizational meeting should have happened.
Yeah.
And then one more motion, I think, is that, I think I'm hearing, so I'll make the motion, it can be voted down, that we are not going to hold a town, that this year our practice will be that we will not be holding an informational meeting for the town representatives, as we do not have a budget to present.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Actually, while I'm thinking about it, maybe if we get it together, we can ask Peter Elwell if we could share the video when they do the select board meeting.
That's true.
The other thing, it would be good.
Oh, like the other information
Yes,
meeting.
just,
Okay,
you know,
that's a good idea.
you know,
Just
that way they
save
can,
10
you know,
minutes or whatever the link
Yes.
is for that.
And
Or
I mean,
at
we could
least the
still
link.
send a link out too, but
Yeah.
the people that show up for that,
Yeah.
we could, you know.
Yeah, and then we
possibly do
should
that.
all make sure that we're at that too, or at least some of us, to answer any questions if people have some.
Yes.
It would be good if we can somehow in this video make sure that we indicate where people can find the Academy presentation, the Green Street presentation, and the Oak Grove presentation. So if anyone wants
taking
more
notes on that one, Em?
in-depth
Perfect.
information
So they
about
can make like a
these groups,
clickable link at the end to each of those full
They could-
episodes.
Yep, they could
that's
go in and
easy.
see
Yep.
those. I had one last thing.
Before you get off of that, Delilah, what are the other towns doing? Are they aware of this and they're no longer having town information nights too?
So the only other town that I've met with is Vernon, and they remain exactly the same as they always have.
They haven't.
Next week is Dummerston, Putney, and Guilford. So
They'll have that same
yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Guilford does know that they will not be presenting a budget at town meeting, but they have not decided what they're going to do. January is School Board Recognition Month.
Yes, we get
so,
socks.
Yes, you get socks, but you also get these wonderful.
Yes, we get a free pair of
Darn
socks.
tough socks is going to give every school board member a free pair of socks.
And you get a nice.
We get a free pair of socks.
We get a free pair of socks. And what could be better?
Makes the whole thing worth it.
I know, it's right there.
All the hours that you put in.
How do
you
we
get a
get
pair of
socks?
Read your Vermont School Board Association thing that just came today.
Yeah, it came in a little, but I received a little note card.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was inside, tucked in, it's a little thank you note.
It's just too funny. This full sock idea, I love it. Okay, so the other administrative report, I do have a couple things that Deb handed me as she went up. And they've sent us the monthly reports by email, mine are there, so I see
Yes.
that. And then Brenda sent me a quick note that's happy for us all to know that she's resubmitted the application for funds to increase Head Start program hours. The original submission was limited by the original instruction that they were only eligible to cover 45% of the slots. And that's a bit clumsy because it's 2.5 classrooms. The regional office got permission for them, or us, to increase our request to cover 3 full classrooms. So yay, that's a very positive thing. She's happy. And then I think we go to the next item on there anyway, which is that we need an actual application approval. So there's a COLA, which is cost of living adjustment approval, and it's a 1.7% increase for all employees effective July 1st. And
Just for EES employees?
yes, it says if we have extra money in the award, we will use it to support contribution towards employee health insurance costs. We strive to maintain EES's 90% contribution towards health insurance costs. So I'm going to make that in the form of a motion so we don't have to read it again, but that we increase the COLA, that we approve the COLA increase of 1.7%. I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Okay. And, wow, is that it?
That's it.
Well, you were going to report out an amendment committee. There was some question about the amendment committee.
Because we now have this pause, and it's not an official stay in Act 46, there is still time to form an amendment committee. It has to be formed the same way the original study committee was formed, and that's if this group wants to pull together and create amendments to the assigned articles of agreement. If we do not do that, we still can amend after July 1st. The same thing has to happen in that a meeting needs to be called of all the towns, so Putney, Dummerston, Brattleboro, Guilford, with warn meetings that would happen in one place. Those amendments have to be presented, and there has to be a vote of the electorate on those amendments. Because of this pause, they don't have to be done by February 28th, which was the original Articles of Agreement said. They can be done anytime between now and July 1st if you want it to happen before July 1st, or it can be done after July 1st.
Lyle, does this, in the original merger articles that the state created, it said that certain kinds of amendments could only be done if there was a vote by the towns.
Right.
Is that
That's
considered what you just said?
Yes.
That meeting, that
Yes.
is called considered a vote, even though it's not like
That's a good
we have
question.
votes here in Brattleboro.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I know David has had question about that, and he had concerns about putting the leadership councils actually into the Articles of Agreement. And his other concern, I think, was on board representation, I think.
I don't know, I know leadership councils from David. I've had other people, electorates from, voters from Brattleboro that have talked with me about the representation on the board.
So just to clarify, then, this kind of a vote is just whoever shows up at that meeting, the majority
Yep.
rules. It's not, because it was unclear from the original thing if it was going to be like a vote like at the ballot, and then would all the towns separately have to approve, or is it just like whoever
Right,
votes
I
the
didn't
most
understand
wins?
it the way you're saying it now. I understood that it was a vote on an Australian ballot.
So-
But you're talking about like how the BOHS budget is approved.
That's how
normally.
I am.
But sometimes they have things at that are Australian ballot at the meeting where people have to do a paper vote.
So I thought that in order to get an amendment committee together, we'd have to say we want an amendment committee. Guilford has to have that same sort of vote. The boards.
All the towns have to
All the
agree to have a
boards.
committee.
Yes.
The
The
boards
boards of the
have to
towns have
agree,
to.
right?
Yes.
Not the towns.
Okay,
the
yeah,
towns.
right.
The boards. And then once the amendment committee gets together, then whatever they come up with for an amendment, it would go out to be voted on by the electorate of all the towns.
But I mean, when you say go out, it would be a meeting that's called and
That
the
part
people that
wasn't
attend vote on it.
Clear. Don't know.
So warrant proposed amendments, as the proposed amendments to the board per statute, exactly in the same form presented to it by the amendment committee, or warrant proposed amendments, amending the language, deleting language, drafting entirely new, not propose any, and then, let's see, also
There was one part where it talked about certain types of changes where if it's this change, then you can do it by this simple method, but if it's the other
Yeah.
types, then you have to do
and
this
that's in the original articles, so
Yeah.
it would depend upon what exactly is being amended.
But still, the first step would be that we would have to say we want to have an amendment committee.
I think we should have an amendment committee. I move that we have an amendment committee.
Second.
Okay then, I think it's very fast and strong. Any more discussion? Do we want to say why we want to have an amendment committee, or we just leave that up to when we get to the amendment committee?
I mean, I think that the two reasons you mentioned from David are both good ones.
Well, I know he wants leadership. I've personally been thinking about the representation and not sure whether it's an issue I'm that concerned about, because the way the board will be elected is by everybody, but the way the board is put together right now is very skewed by it's not by population.
Correct.
So I would think those are my interests in having an amendment committee. I don't know if anybody else has other thoughts.
Let me, I want to try to get this straight.
Good luck.
I'm not sure that I do. This is to amend the draft agreement.
This is to amend the state mandated Articles of Agreement for the merger of the 4 towns.
Are
Does
they
it
the
also- wait,
same as the
does-
draft
No.
agreement that was written?
Nope.
They've been changed slightly, but also could the amendment committee look at the supervisor union, should Vernon stay with us, and changing that representation like Vernon has suggested?
that would be something totally different, because that is really about WSESU and that representation. And this is just, the amendment committee is for the merged towns looking at the articles of agreement that will
Merge those 4 towns.
right, and how that merger is going to come up.
So then this amendment committee would have to include representation from all the towns?
I think it would be
It's
like
the
WSESU.
No, it's the same, the amendment committee was to be formed the same way as the original study committee was formed. So Brattleboro would have 3 representatives and the other towns would each have...
They each had 1 voting, and they usually sent 2.
Right. And we had
Okay.
3 voting.
And you had 3 voting.
Okay, so then we would choose 3 people from our board who want to be on this amendment committee.
But first, we don't decide if we want an amendment committee alone. We would just be saying that our board feels strongly that we want an amendment committee.
Okay.
So that's
And
the vote that's coming up if we're done discussing else.
do we need to
Then we should,
assign people to it at this point, or just
No,
wait and see if
because-
the other towns want to?
Because Guilford, Putney, and Dummerston all have to agree that they want an amendment committee.
So once if it got to the point where all the towns agreed to have this
Then we
committee,
should
then we
do
could
that.
assign people.
Exactly.
then I think we should include what our major interests are at this point, without excluding anything else that may come up, but we should at least mention that we're seeking an amendment committee because of a strong interest in amending the leadership council and the voting scheme, or whatever it is, and whatever else, but
So I
so
think
that
that's
other
why
towns have something to think about.
We could ask Lyle to take that forward, and I guess I would like to phrase it, if it's all right with all the rest of you, that we'd like to look at the board configuration.
Can I ask Jill, as someone intimately familiar with the study committee's articles, is there any major differences besides those 2 things that you noticed in the state's merger?
Those are the most glaring.
Yeah, that's, the school closure
The
was
school
same.
closure is a little bit different. We had said nothing could be closed in 5 years. They had put down 2.
So I could see the smaller towns, that's going to.
They might want to go back
Maybe
to
that's
that.
why they want to join the committee,
Yes.
because they want to
Right.
advocate for that change. I mean,
The
for
school,
I
the
feel like-
school choice issue was slightly different, but it wasn't fundamentally different.
I would think that, so, I mean, this can be a discussion for that committee when it forms, if and when it forms, but like, it seems to me like, why don't we just suggest adopting these study committees articles instead of the state one?
We can't amend all of the articles that are assigned to us, so that's why we could not just do that.
Okay, we
There
can't
are
just
some-
replace the whole thing.
No.
I see.
There's some that were very much set in stone, but it would be simple enough to look at exactly what's different and say, do we want to address these sorts of things?
The ones that are possible.
I just would make a comment in a very wide open way, that one of the hesitations I have about the board representation and why I would like to phrase it carefully is that I know that was a huge issue for the study committee, and Brattleboro took pains to remain neutral at all times because it was a huge issue. And I'm still very sensitive to the fact that they're worried on the outer towns because there is a population imbalance. At the same time, I feel like the population imbalance at this point is pretty strongly against Brattleboro, and I don't think it needed to sway that far. I liked the compromise that we came up with the at-large. So that's why I'd like to bring it up, but in a calm fashion and not a demand.
I think a
The
lot of
Vernon
people-
issue is a much bigger issue to me in that the supervisory union formation that we talked about before, with just having Vernon's small population sending 3 people to the supervisory union and the rest of us sending 3. That's not even 1 per town. That seems very disproportionately wrong. And Vernon themselves have also said they would support having that changed. The other issue I have with Vernon is remaining in the SU is that we have to create a specialized structure just for Vernon. And that seems unfair to the rest of us. So that, I just want to be really clear as to my.
What is the
motivation.
school board configuration in the articles that we're working with now? What is it? Is it
It's two people per town.
Yes.
2 people per town?
Which is essentially what the supervisory union is right now.
What's that?
That's the
It's 3.
WSESU, it's 3.
It's 3 per town.
3 per town.
And the high school board is 2.
The high school is 1 for each of the outlying towns and 5 from Brattleboro town.
Oh, so the high school board is proportional.
Yes.
Maybe I might have asked the wrong question. I was thinking of the new permanent
The new merged board.
merged board
2 per
is
town.
right now in the articles to be 2 people from
Per town.
each town.
So I guess we're at the point we can say if we're all in favor of asking whatever. What is our official motion order there, Kelly?
Well, it came very quick, but it was just a motion to have an amendment committee was the first thing that
Okay.
it said, and then it was seconded.
That's true. And we were asking Lyle to address
Yeah.
our concerns. So there we are. To have an amendment committee, voting up or down, yea or nay?
Okay.
Alrighty then, that's done. And Lyle will take our concerns nicely worded for us.
Absolutely.
So Lyle, in terms of addressing the burn-in, if burn-in and we do the merged SU, is that something the SU can discuss
Yes,
at the,
at a WSESU.
at NWS? All right.
So
And we'd be able to
WSESU
vote on
gets to decide its
representation
own
there?
representation? Or do we have to apply for some
Sorry.
sort of waiver? I'm sorry.
Both.
So we would be able to vote at the SU meeting to address that and change that?
Yeah, and
No.
we could.
We can't change it.
Right.
We can apply for a waiver.
Apply for a waiver,
Yeah,
yes.
to the State Board of Ed.
Okay. And when is the next SU meeting?
We don't have one scheduled yet.
Okay.
We generally only have 4 a year, one late spring and then one just before middle school.
And the waiver waives the requirement that we have equal representation by town on the board? Or do we get to propose our own?
this is the SU one.
I mean, on the
With
SU board.
burn-in, the
Yeah,
burn-in
what would
reps,
the
yeah.
waiver
I'm
would
just wondering
say?
what
we
are
would
we
replace it. It's asking for admission or an exception to the rule and then we would set our own.
Okay,
Right, but that still does not address the inefficiencies
No.
right.
of having a side-by-side
That's just
instead of
gonna
a
fix the
merged thing.
unevenness part of it.
So that could be an issue at some point. Okay, well, next agenda items. Is there anything on the work plan? Do you have that handy or should I pull it up?
I'm wondering, I think, doesn't our work plan include one of our meetings agendas is mainly prepare for the town meeting?
That's what I want to look at.
So we have some time on our hands.
So we're
there.
moved, our
sure we'll
next
find
one
things,
is February 4, and that's when the pre-K providers and the legislators are coming.
And that's all we're doing that night, you guys.
Yes.
No business. So if you all,
Climate surveys written down.
no, on Monday, February 4th.
I have climate surveys as well.
For February 4th? That's a Monday.
February 6th.
It was
It's
originally
now-
the February 6th meeting and then we changed the date to the 4th
I
because that's
thought-
when the
The
legislators will come.
legislators can only come on a Monday.
And,
because
but I
there's-
thought you all couldn't come on that. You can on the Monday? Yes?
I can come,
If-
I'm the one that
you
has
know-
to leave for another meeting.
And Deb has to leave.
If people
Deborah.
can't come on that day, why don't we just switch it to the March
We
5th
can't.
meeting?
Oh,
Because that's when we don't have to prepare for the town meeting anymore.
that's a question for you all. Could we make the February 4th meeting be only the preschool providers? And then anything else that was on our work plan for February 6th, now 4th, changed to March 5th when we were gonna prep for. Is that okay with you all?
Okay.
So that would push what down? Just the
The
Parent
climate,
Yep.
parent climate stuff will wait a month.
That's the only difference.
Will that be all right? Okay, so next agenda then?
It's the pre-K providers with the legislators.
So there's really nothing else on the agenda. We're not gonna have a lot of business to discuss, I don't think.
Unless there's something that comes up that we have to vote on that needs to be done
terms
before
of-
March 5th.
Right, in
Right.
terms of the amendment
Because we
committee.
don't have another meeting in February.
correct, because it's vacation.
We're all
The
good with
amendment
that?
committee or any kind of employment situation.
Right, and if their amendment committee comes up and says, everybody says yes, then we just need to name ourselves, so we can do that at that point. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn, I think.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.